Hey guys, it's Cara from Enchanted Vines, and today we're going to make another 20-minute wreath tutorial. And just a reminder, I've already prepped all the materials and there's some finishing steps that you aren't going to see, so it doesn't actually take 20 minutes, but the basic recipe you can do in 20 minutes. So Alexa, set a timer for 20 minutes. And I apologize because I guess when I do that, that sets off people's Alexas. But anyways, okay, so here we go. I'm going to tilt you towards the easel. All right, my fabulous filming skills. There we go. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be establishing our boundaries using greenery. This is ficus, and I've prepped the rest, but just to show you, this has 3 branches, and I'm going to snip the side branch, then the other side branch, and then for this really long one in the middle, we don't need anything that long. So I'm going to cut it at like the halfway point and then cut again. Okay, so I want to manipulate my materials so that they match what I need. And now let's get into it. So this is for an order, so I have to use muscle memory to make sure that this wreath is the same as the listing, which won't be a problem. I will definitely do a final check to look at the photo and make sure that everything is in place. But in general, once you get your color palettes down, you can kind of just go on autopilot. So I have a question for some of my fellow creators because I've had a bit of a rough week this week. I lost my shepherd that I've had for 8 years, and if you're not a pet person, then you might be saying like, oh my gosh, move along. But if you are a pet person, you probably get that it's just really difficult. So this just happened like 2 nights ago. And so I really haven't felt like designing. I've been doing a lot of things to keep busy, but designing wasn't one of them because this brings me a lot of joy. But I think sometimes when you're sad, you just kind of want to be in the sadness. And that's where I was. So I took a walk today. I put on my big girl pants. And I'm hoping that once I get started, this is all just going to flow and be great. So hopefully that's not like a super depressing way to start a tutorial. But we're already in it. So I'm going to keep going. All right. Now the focal point for this are going to be these blue hydrangeas. This foliage we don't need. So for some reason, I do save it and use it, but not for this one. So I'm going to remove, and they just pull off. Now everything that we do is, these products are really, really malleable. So don't be worried that you're going to break something or you're going to ruin it. I mean, even if something did pop off, there is usually a way to go back and like very carefully glue it back into place. So, I mean, I always tell people at my workshops, like, I am far from being a delicate creature, so therefore I manhandle a lot of these materials. And that's fine, because if you're buying good quality materials, then they are up for the challenge. Like, these hydrangeas are so hardy. And I love them because there's so much color in them, and it just reminds me of, like, true New England flowers. So on the listing, in between these blooms, we had a pop of yellow with this yellow, it's like baby's breath, which, is it me or has baby's breath made a comeback? Because I've hated baby's breath forever, and now all of a sudden I like it again. So the other thing is, for the purpose of this, turn it again. This should have small blooms. I didn't have a white hydrangea bush, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to manipulate this so that it works for me. And so the way I'm going to do it is, the blooms that were shown in this listing had a much smaller head. So I know this seems a little bit wasteful, but I'm going to trim 1 layer of this. And even though it seems wasteful, if I have to place an order or go into a store, believe me, it's going to cost me a lot of money because I just have so little self-control when it comes to my supplies. So, okay, so I cut a whole row off of this. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the same thing. Now, of course, I did the lower row because if I did the top, it's going to look funny. So, okay, let me, enough of my face. Let's go back. Oh my. Someday I'll learn, guys. Someday you'll have a great view. And you'll say, why didn't you do this sooner? And I'd say, because I didn't know how. So again, I'm going to go through and cut this bottom layer. I mean, I'm sure you could find something cute to repurpose this with. Like if you wanted to make a crown of flowers, which I don't know how to do. That's a very random suggestion by me, but put them in a little bowl. There's just things you can do. I know we don't like to waste. All right. So there, I've made them nice and small. And now we're gonna go in with our cabbage roses from Pioneer. So if you have greenery like this, you can either push it up the stem or you could pull it off. I actually really like the greenery on this, so I'm going to leave it on. So again, you know, manipulating things so that it suits our purpose so that we get the most bang for our buck. Yes, I would love to know if people have feedback because, you know, when you're creating things, like, usually it's because you're in, like, a really good mood or you're happy and kind of, like, the creativity flows. But if it's your job and you're not feeling creative, it's not like you could just call your boss and be like, I just don't feel like it because I'm my boss. And I'd be like, no, come on in. So I'm having to boss up on myself and get back on track a little bit. But if people have some tips on things that they use, I would love to know. I feel like for me, going and taking a walk today, and I walked my other shepherd, I feel like it was just kind of like a little bit of what my heart needed. So, all right. So quickly, Alexa, how much time is left on the timer? We've only been doing this for 7 minutes. Like this wreath is almost done. So find your signature flowers, find your signature recipe, and then just get cooking. Because you see how fast this comes together. And we're not using any shortcuts or anything. It's just a matter of placement. And sometimes less is more. Sometimes we get in a habit where we want to like really cram everything in. And that doesn't look natural. Like if you think of how things are in nature, things have space between them. So we don't have blooms that grow one against the other. You know, like right here, we're going to put in a little bit of greenery to separate it. All right, now I'm looking at this bloom actually. And look, it's got like marks on it. So you always just want to kind of look at your materials and make sure if something was like that, that's a manufacturer's error. Now I feel like I need to kind of just go and inspect and make sure that's not anywhere else because I don't want to send out something that looks unnatural. Okay, so that was a fluke. That was a one-off. But this just goes to show you that you can just pull off pieces that you don't need that aren't serving you. All right, so for this design, we have these beautiful chartreuse berries from Pioneer. As you can see, everything is so malleable. So here's one stem. If I was doing an arrangement, maybe I'd leave this intact. But for the purpose of this, we're going to tear this into threes, again, with the manhandling. Now, a lot of berries that you find that like I see in person are very foamy and cheap, and I don't know how they could ever withhold or like withstand weather. So if you find a good berry that doesn't look like it's very foamy, I would say buy a bunch. I'm not sure if Hobby Lobby might, but like I don't think like a Michael's would carry a hardy berry. Who knew I was such a berry snob? But all of these wreaths are made to be outdoors, uncovered, in like uncovered areas. So you have to think if you're using things that are very foamy or have like a lot of paper on them, there's nothing you're going to be able to do to keep those from any type of weather damage. As soon as they get wet, they're going to be ruined. So, like, we will be using UV spray, but that's not going to help something that's made of paper or something that's really styrofoamy. So these have a nice coating on them. I mean, they are inside is styrofoam, but they have a nice protective coating outside. And these come in 3 different colors. So there's like pink, cream, and then this chartreuse green, which I love. And it photographs so beautifully, and it like jumps off your door. Like, I always think that's kind of like the beauty of wreath making, or like why people like to have wreaths. Like, one is because you want to have like a welcoming entryway, but 2, like, you spend a lot of time and energy on your home and you want it to look as beautiful as possible. And so sometimes these are like the elements that give you that curb appeal. I mean, our car is going to be driving off the road outside your house because of your wreath. I don't know. I will say I definitely look at people's doors when I drive, and I'm a bit of a door snob. I think it's just like a work hazard, maybe. I can't help it. Just like, why don't you have a wreath on your door? It doesn't have to be my wreath. Please don't let it be a Home Goods wreath, because those are awful. Sorry, Home Goods. But please have something on your door, or one of those door hanging signs. It's just something that looks welcoming. All right. So we're getting our berries dispersed throughout. We want to make sure we have that nice balanced look. So again, with my OCD, if I've got it here, I want to have it down here. I am gluing using a glue pot. His name is Glenn, thanks to my daughter naming him that. And for the rest of this recipe, we're going to go in with some different texture greenery, okay? So we have this one that's got a lot of movement to it. So I'm going to use the shorter pieces because they have some structure. If I was going to use something hanging like this, I might put it on a pick, or I might cut it down significantly. Nobody needs droopy greens. All right. So now let's start going in. And what I like about these pieces is I consider them kind of like disruptors, like the baby's breath is disrupting spaces by coming in just kind of out of nowhere. And I love when things drape over each other. It's kind of like that, how you find things in nature. Like, although I am OCD and I like things a very specific way, part of the specificity, that's right, I said specificity, is that things are intentionally looking natural. So not everything is up and down. Things might be tilted, coming in at different angles, things like that. And as I'm looking at this, we need another white hydrangea. There's a lack of balance there. So I'm going to go in, cut this layer off. And we'll go in. Make her nice and small. And I want to wedge her in up here. Oh, that looks so much better. I do want to make her look a little smaller because I don't want her to compete. The blue hydrangeas are a focal point. I am just going to angle this in a bit so we're just kind of seeing the side of her. There we go. Okay. Definitely when you're designing, take a step back. Like, now that I'm looking here, we need another cabbage rose. And because I'm using the glue pot, the glue is super, super hot and will blister your skin very easily. So I always encourage, if you're somebody like, sometimes I hover, I'm not sure where to put it. I hover not over my skin and not over the wreath because I don't want it to drip here. So I let it drip. I have a little tray on my easel. And that's where it catches it. Because if you had a significant glue burn, you know it's not pretty. And sometimes bad words come out of your mouth and the whole thing. I'm not even sure my daughter knew I swore until I started making wreaths. But I've gotten smarter about not getting burned so often. And here, there's a glue drop on here. So what I'm going to do, because that's not coming off easily, is I'm going to take, how cute are these scissors from Target? I'm going to just snip off this little piece of the petal. Actually, I'm just going to do the top at a rounded edge. And no one will be the wiser, aside from the fact that I published it. All right. Our last step is going to be this very viney greenery, which I love. I use this in a lot of my designs because I love the crawl factor. So, okay, so it comes like this. I am going to break this up into much smaller pieces. And this is one of those materials, like when you have a material that you love, like I love these hydrangeas, I love this. These are things that you want to just go bulk in. And there's a lot of great places to go bulk. You can do, Pioneer is always my main jam. There is, what is it called? Inspiration Corner is a good one. And for something like just the grapevine wreaths themselves, I'll even use like the Michaels bulk. I jump around between where the best pricing is for those. All right, now we're gonna go in with our crawly greens. So I want them to have an impact. So I'm gonna have this be like the last thing, this last bit of texture that is crawling on my wreath. Just leaving that like trailing. Use it as an interrupter and park it right in between some blooms. We did it up there. We got to repeat. Let's go underneath. And when I'm working on the top half of my wreath, I'm putting everything in at like a downward angle. But when I'm working with the lower half of the wreath, I shift everything at an upward angle. And the benefits of that is that it's more likely to catch with the actual grapevine, like how it's woven in. Granted, we're gluing, but if you have like one extra way to secure something, why not just take the time to use that method to make sure that it's truly like stuck in there. All right, we got two pieces. Where are we going to put them? Right here. And we'll put one right here. All right, Alexa, how much time do we have left? Oh God, I'm triggering like an Alexa upstairs. Alexa, how much time left on the timer? Ooh. All right, we only have about a minute left. So real quick, how gorgeous is this? Minimal materials. You know, once you have a couple like bushes of your cabbage roses, your greenery, you're good to go. And you can keep recreating this design just using different color palettes. One of the finishing things I'm going to be doing is all of these stems back here all need to be trimmed, okay? The last thing that we want to do, whether it's for ourselves or for a customer, is send them a wreath that is going to damage their door, okay? So if you can see, anything sticking out, I'm going to go in with heavy duty wire cutters and trim them. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some glue to the parts I cut, because the parts I cut are the parts that were dipped in glue. So I take this preserved moss. Alexa, stop. I mean, I don't know. Do I get penalized that I went over? I don't know. You can just stop watching, and that way I fulfilled my promise of the 20-minute wreath. Okay, but if you are still watching, if you're a rule breaker like me, we're going to take our, I use a Surebonder wireless glue gun, and I'm going to glue all of those pieces that I just trimmed just to make sure they're really secure. I'm in New Hampshire, and New England has just like the most erratic weather. So it can be raining, it can be windy, and I'm not one to take my wreath inside. My wreaths are not covered. I don't have a porch, like a covered porch. So these are designed that you don't need to do that. We've taken into account the different elements and gone the extra mile to secure it. Okay. When you're doing this, because the glue is so hot, just be really careful. What I usually do is just kind of like lightly put the moss on. I'm not going to stick my fingers like on it and burn it.